This is my favorite. This is why I do turnarounds. Your ability, when you have a single family home, or even a duplex, anything up to 4 units, how is it valued? It's based on comparable sales, which means your house, it doesn't matter how gorgeous you make it, there's only a certain amount that it can increase in value, because it's based on other things that have sold in the neighborhood. Which means that as we are doing renovations, if we're going to sell it, or even if we're going to keep it and refinance it and hold it, the value of our property can only go up to a certain point. And it can't usually go up too much. The thing that's different about apartments is that the way that apartment buildings are valued is based on the income of the property and what's called a capitalization rate. And so that's what I'm going to go over. I'm going to show you a couple of numbers on that just to help you understand, like, how does that work? And why is there so much more available in apartment buildings? So as you go down in your career and you're making your investment choices, you can be educated about what the real potential is. All right? So, how many people know what net operating income is? Okay, about half you guys. Okay, so in the world of apartment buildings, net operating income would be the equivalent of net income on a regular company financial statement. So it's your revenues, which would be rents, minus your expenses. What it does not include would be debt service. And debt service essentially means when you're paying on a loan. So when you pay principal and or interest, those numbers are not included in net operating income. Okay, and these are key things if you are new to apartment investing and you're interested in getting into apartment investing. These are very important things to know, particularly when you're analyzing your numbers. Okay, so, for example, let's say we have a building that is $250,000, the purchase price. For an apartment. What market? Oh, I'm going to use some examples that just make your guys' head spin right off your head, off your neck. All right, this would not be California, by the way. So let's say it's a 16 unit, $250,000. All right, so if the net operating income was $25,000, meaning that rents that came in over the course of the year, less the expenses that went out, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, property management, utilities, etc. If we have a $25,000, it's called NOI, so net operating income in the apartment world is referred to as NOI. You hear someone saying that, NOI, they're saying it really fast, that's what they're referring to. So what this means, the relationship between these two numbers creates what's called a capitalization rate. Our cap rate is what is the term that we use. And the way you calculate cap rate is essentially this. What is the purchase price divided by what is the income of the building, the net income? So in this case, and I made it really, really tough. I know the numbers are very, very, they're going to be tough. What would be the cap rate on this building? $250,000 divided by $25,000. Good. Okay. So that would mean the building has a 10% cap rate. And let me help you understand without talking about loans. So net operating income or 10% cap rate would be the same as if you invested $250,000 in this building, cash, meaning you didn't get a loan. And we don't normally do that. But if you invested $250,000 cash, and at the end of the year you had $25,000 left over, that would be a 10% return on your money, right? So a cap rate is essentially the equivalent of a ROI, or return on investment, if there was no loan. When you're trying to attach what does this stuff mean, that's what it means. So 10% cap rate would be an awesome, we're always shooting for 10%. It's hard to find 10% cap rates. But for the purpose of doing numbers, it's certainly much easier. So we're going to use this as an example for other ones. Just know, in a lot of markets that we're shooting for, if we can hit 9% cap rate, that's considered a good solid cap rate. Not that easy to find in California. Cap rates tend to be a little bit lower, and mainly because the values of properties are higher. All right. And in some markets, it's actually even a little bit higher than 10%. But
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's NOI divided by purchase price. It's going to be...
sorry. Excuse me. It is NOI divided by purchase price. Yeah, because that would be 10, not 10%. Thank you, Jen. Okay. All right, you get a bonus after. All right, so let's do the same example. Let's say we have a $500,000 building. Let's say now we're in California, and it's like, I don't know, a 5-unit. Although not in Lake Havasu, because they're only 289,000, apparently. And let's say we have a 25.
Thanks for the plug.
Hey, I'm all about you. It's all about the love. All right. So what if we had a $500,000 building, but it still only produced $25,000 of net operating income by the end of the year? What would the cap rate be then? 5%. It would be 5%. So if you were a cash investor, if you were putting all cash into this deal, and you're looking for your return on investment, what is more appealing to you? This deal or this deal? The 10%. Of course, that makes sense. So when you're looking at apartment buildings, the numbers you're looking at is the higher the cap rate is, the better the deal. In theory. Here, not necessarily. Okay, in theory, based strictly on numbers. Now, I know there are some brokers in the room, so please don't get upset, because I have been a seller too, and I know that sometimes when I'm selling a building, I don't know what happens, but these rosy-colored sunglasses magically come on my face, and sometimes the cap rate that I project is a little bit rosier than it might be. But you just never know. Some people might operate their building a certain way. So you have to be aware when you're looking at listings that the cap rate listed, you have to do your own due diligence to make sure that it is what they say. But what you're looking for is a higher cap rate. So if you see something is 5%, unless you're doing that investment for a different reason altogether, like you just want to have a property in a certain area and you don't care what the return is, you're always going to look for the higher one for a straight return on investment. All right, so what I love about apartments and why I've become a turnaround specialist is we have an ability. So as this number goes up, what if we were able to raise this number right here? Sorry, you guys probably can't see it. What if we could raise the net operating income from $25,000 up to $35,000? What would that mean? Well, in a market, in general, markets have an established market cap rate. Now, and it usually will range, but let's say that we're in a market where most buildings have a 10% cap rate. Okay, so if I can raise the net income on the building by $10,000 a year, that means I can raise the value of the building. So if I apply a 10% cap rate to a $35,000 NOI, what is the value of the property then? It's $350,000. So if I can create systems that can allow me to raise the NOI, what would be some ways I could raise the net operating income?
Raise the rent.
Okay, raise the, so there's two main ways. You can either increase revenues, or what would be the other big way? Or reduce expenses. That's it. You can either raise revenue, reduce expenses. So under raising revenues, you could raise rents. What about just filling up units that have been sitting vacant because of poor marketing or poor management? That would be a way. When I'm going into an apartment building, the ones that I like are the ones that are not occupied any better than 60%, or not performing any better than 60%, because now I have an opportunity to go in and actually bring in more income. If it's already at 90%, that's, for a turnaround person like me, that's not as appealing, because I don't have as much opportunity to raise up the income that could raise up the net operating income. Does that make sense? Okay, well, what would it take? I mean, how would I get a building from $25,000 to $35,000 in a year? That's $10,000 a year. So how much is that per month? I know, that's not an even number. It's $833 a month, right? So if we... Well, and 33 cents. We can't forget the little 33 cents. They're very important. So I have the ability, if you have the ability, to go in and figure out how, through either raising the income of the building or reducing the expenses of the building, if we could figure out a way to bring in an extra $833 net, we can essentially, effectively, create an extra $10,000 a year of net operating income, which turns into another how much in value? $100,000. So, in the course of a year, it doesn't need to take a whole year to do this, but in the course of a 12-month period, if I can buy an underperforming building and figure out how to just get the income up by $833 a month, I've essentially created a $100,000 profit for myself.